Welcome back. Today, we enter the quiet battlefield, not the kind with shouting or slammed doors, but the one fought in silence where your greatest weapon isn't louder words, but deeper self-respect. You're here because you've reached that edge, where trying harder only drains you, where explaining yourself no longer earns understanding, where loving her has begun to cost you yourself. This is not about manipulation, not about winning her back. It's about remembering who you are and what happens when a man stops chasing what was never meant to be begged for. In this video, we'll uncover 7 Stoic actions that, once taken, silently shake the very ground beneath a woman who once took you for granted. And by the end, you won't need her validation. She'll be left wondering why she ever felt she could live without you. Because when a Stoic man withdraws with dignity, he doesn't lose her. She loses access to the best version of him. Let's begin. Number 1. The power of silence. When you stop explaining yourself, everything changes. Welcome back. You've been taught to explain, to justify, to prove, to defend yourself when a woman accuses you, blames you, misunderstands you. You were raised to believe that if you don't respond, if you don't clarify, she'll think less of you. That silence is weakness. That stillness means guilt. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if your silence is power? What if your stillness is the loudest message you could ever send? You see, there's a moment every man will face in a relationship. A moment when she says, "You don't care about me," or "You're cold, you're distant, you never explain anything." And inside, everything in you wants to react, to prove that you're not who she thinks you are, to break the tension, to fix the misunderstanding. But the Stoic man does something radical. He breathes, he looks at her, calm, and instead of explaining, he says nothing. Not out of cruelty, not out of detachment, but out of self-mastery. Because when a woman no longer respects your words, you must let your energy speak. Epictetus said, "You control only your own thoughts and actions, not the emotions of others." So when she's creating emotional chaos, hoping you'll jump into it with her, you must stand like a mountain in the storm. You must hold your frame, you must understand. She's not always asking for answers. Sometimes she's testing for stability. A man who explains himself too much is a man seeking permission to exist. And the moment you do that, you put her in control of your emotional state. You say, "My worth depends on whether or not you believe me." And that's the death of desire. Because women are not drawn to desperation, they're drawn to certainty. When you stop explaining, something shifts in her. First confusion, then curiosity, then reflection. Your silence holds a mirror to her actions. It says, "I'm not going to play this game. I know who I am." This doesn't mean you never speak. It means you choose when and how to respond. And only when you are centered, not triggered. Practical example, she says, "You didn't even care about what I said yesterday. You never listen." Your instinct is to say, "That's not true. I did this, I said that, I thought about it all night." But instead, you breathe, look her in the eye and say, "I understand how you feel." Then walk away if the conversation spirals into chaos, not out of disrespect, but out of emotional discipline. Because real men don't argue to win. They choose peace to preserve their strength. The paradox is this: the less you explain, the more she listens. The more calmly you respond, the more she questions her own outburst. And in that quiet, she's forced to ask herself, "Why am I fighting someone who's not fighting me? Why am I trying to control a man who refuses to be shaken?" This is the moment where you stop being the reactive boy and become the anchored man. When you no longer need her to see your side, when you no longer need to win the argument, when you can hold silence like a sword rather than a shield, that's when she realizes you've changed. And that change, it terrifies her. but it also attracts her. Because deep down, every woman is drawn to the man who can stand in fire without flinching. The man who doesn't need to beg for validation. The man who doesn't need to win an argument to feel whole. So the next time she throws emotional chaos your way, remember this. Your value isn't in how well you defend yourself. It's in how well you contain yourself. Let your stillness be your power. Let your silence be your presence. Let your restraint be your statement. And above all, let your refusal to explain be the very thing that makes her question everything. Number 2, choosing peace over her chaos. The Stoic man's quiet rebellion. It starts with a message. Maybe she texts you in all caps. Maybe she says you don't care. Maybe she calls while you're working just to tell you she's angry. She's emotional, demanding, chaotic. And you feel it rise in your chest, the pressure to respond, to drop everything and make it right, to explain yourself, to soothe her, to cancel your plans, your peace, your priorities for her storm. But not this time. This time, you look at the message, you breathe, you return to what you were doing, your work, your gym session, your moment of stillness, and you simply say, "I'll call you later, I'm busy right now." And in that moment, something powerful happens. You've just told her without shouting, without arguing, that her chaos no longer rules your world. You've chosen peace, not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself enough to stop trading your clarity for her confusion. A Stoic man does not bend to every mood. He does not rush to fix feelings that are not his to carry. He understands that love is not the same as emotional submission. When you make peace your priority, she feels it. She feels the absence of your usual response. The silence where you once pleaded. The steadiness where you once scrambled. And that absence echoes. Why? Because women, especially those who are used to control through emotion, subconsciously rely on your reaction to feel powerful. Your anxiety becomes their validation. Your over-explaining becomes their sense of importance. Your emotional chaos becomes their order. But when you step out of that pattern, when you no longer give in to the drama, when you say, "Not today, not anymore," they're left with nothing but their own reflection. And often for the first time, they begin to question their behavior. This is not cruelty, this is emotional sovereignty. Stoicism teaches, you may not control all events, but you can choose not to be reduced by them. That includes emotional storms thrown your way, like tests, because love should not feel like a battlefield. And if it does, you don't win by fighting harder. You win by stepping off the field, not to punish her, but to preserve you. Practical example, she texts, "Wow, guess you don't even care enough to answer." You could reply, "Stop being dramatic. I care, but you're being unfair. I'm just trying to help." But all of those pull you back into her storm. Instead, the Stoic response is, "I'm in the middle of something. We'll talk when I'm free." It's short, calm, clear. It's not passive-aggressive, it's not cold, it's firm. And what she feels, perhaps for the first time, is that your time, your peace, your mental energy, they're not up for grabs anymore. This isn't just about her, it's about the man you're becoming, a man who doesn't cancel his values to calm a temporary emotion, a man who doesn't chase affection at the cost of his own center, a man who leads not by controlling, but by not being controlled. And ironically, that's the moment she sees you differently. Not because you caved, but because you didn't. She may not say it, but deep down she respects it. Because every time you choose inner stillness over outer chaos, you teach her without words what kind of man you are. And that perhaps she's not as powerful in your life as she thought. And in that absence of power, she finally begins to see your value. Number 3, when you stop competing for her time, she starts noticing your absence. There was a time when you were always the first to text. You checked her stories before they disappeared. You double-tapped every post, crafted clever replies, showed up in her inbox before she even missed you. You were there, eager, available, ready. But now you don't. Not because you're playing games, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally realized love that has to be chased constantly is never truly yours. There comes a moment when a Stoic man realizes that his attention is sacred. His time, his presence, his energy are not currency to be spent on someone who hasn't earned them. And so, he stops. He stops competing with strangers on her feed. He stops reacting to her mixed signals. He stops fighting to be noticed. And in that stillness, he becomes noticed more than ever. You see, some women don't realize what they had until it's no longer on demand. Your daily texts, gone. Your instant likes, quiet. Your constant presence, now a void. At first, she won't understand it. She might even feel annoyed, like, why isn't he checking in? Why hasn't he commented on my post? But beneath that annoyance is discomfort. And beneath that discomfort is doubt. And that doubt sounds like this. Did I take him for granted? Was he more valuable than I realized? This is the silent power of withdrawing your pursuit. When you remove yourself from the race for her attention, she's left with the sound of her own thoughts. And they're not always kind. She begins comparing, and no one else feels quite like you. No one else listens the way you did. No one else pays attention with the same calm depth. No one else offers what you offered because most are just noise, while you were presence. Stoicism teaches us this truth. Desire is not about possession, it's about perception. And when you stop handing yourself over too easily, her perception of you shifts. You become a question, not an answer. You become a mystery, not a guarantee. But here's what matters most. You're not doing this to manipulate her. You're not withdrawing to punish her. You're simply reclaiming your energy. You're choosing to prioritize your life over someone who didn't fully see your value when you were fully available. And that, my friend, is what ignites respect. So if you used to initiate plans every weekend, stop. If you used to double text when she didn't reply, don't. If you used to watch her stories like a ritual, break the habit. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about yourself to keep proving your worth. Let her feel your absence. Let her wonder. Let her sit with the silence you used to fill. Because a woman who has grown used to being chased will only re-evaluate your worth when you stop running toward her. And when you do, she'll either rise to meet you or fade into the background where she always belonged. But you'll walk forward, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with the quiet strength of a man who no longer competes for a place in someone's mind, because you've finally found your place in your own. Number 4. When you stop reacting to her mixed signals, you take back the frame. It used to throw you off. One day she's warm, playful, present. The next she's distant, cold, delayed in response, or ignoring you altogether. Then she comes back with a compliment, a smile, a just thinking of you. And you'd lean in, respond faster, ask, is everything okay? You'd overthink, reread messages, analyze tone, wonder what you did wrong, caught in a storm you didn't create but somehow felt responsible to fix. That's exactly how she maintained the power. Not because she's evil, not because she wanted to hurt you, but because consciously or not, she learned that confusion keeps you chasing. The more unpredictable she becomes, the more alert you become. And without realizing it, you turn into a man who's no longer grounded in his frame. You're reactive, you're emotional, you're off balance. But then something changes. You stop. You stop checking how long she takes to reply. You stop wondering what her tone meant. You stop adjusting your behavior based on her emotional temperature. She leaves you on red. You do nothing. She disappears for 2 days, then sends a flirty meme. You smile, maybe respond, or maybe not. Because now your attention is earned, not demanded. That silence, that indifference, it rattles her. Because now she's the one unsure. Now she is decoding you, and that reversal of energy. It's not a game, it's a reflection of your emotional discipline. Stoicism teaches us that we are not disturbed by events, but by our interpretation of them. When you see her hot and cold behavior as a personal attack, you suffer. But when you see it as a pattern, you no longer get caught in the emotional undertow. Because now, you're not in the business of proving your worth through emotional decoding. You've stopped playing detective and started living with clarity. The moment you say, "I don't chase confusion," you elevate your entire presence. Practical application. She texts you something vague, emotionally baiting. "I don't even know if you care anymore." Old you? You'd respond with a paragraph proving your devotion. New you. You say, "That's not true, but I'm not getting into this now," or simply nothing. Because the truth is, the more consistently calm you become, the more inconsistent behavior exposes itself for what it is: manipulation or insecurity. And you're not here to fix either. You're here to live a life so rich, so full, so purposeful, that emotional games lose their grip on your attention. Let her feel your detachment. Let her wonder why her usual patterns no longer pull a reaction from you. Let her realize that while she was playing to stay interesting, you were evolving to become unshakable. And in that unshakable energy, something happens. She either levels up or she disappears. Either way, you win. Because the moment you stop reacting to inconsistency, you start attracting women and people in general who value clarity as much as you do. Not because you demand it, but because your life is too aligned to tolerate anything less. Number 5. When you smile without her, she feels the weight of your absence. There's something haunting about a man who's smiling but not at her. Not bitter, not angry, just quietly thriving, posting a photo from a weekend hike, laughing with friends at a late-night diner, pushing himself at the gym, taking back his mornings, looking good, focused, light. And for the first time she realizes she's not in the picture, not because you're hiding, but because you've finally stopped orbiting around her. This isn't the silence of revenge, it's the sound of liberation. When you smile without her, you're doing something radical. You're proving that she was never the source of your happiness, only a chapter in it. Most men don't understand this. They try to win the breakup, they try to act happy, they post thirst traps, they show off, they perform. But a Stoic man doesn't need theatrics. He doesn't force joy, he cultivates it from the inside out. And that joy, it doesn't scream, it whispers. And when she hears that whisper, when she sees the life you've rebuilt, without needing her validation, she feels it. Not just emotionally, but existentially. Like a part of her that once held power now feels irrelevant. She starts checking your stories more often. She lingers longer on your feed. She wonders if you've already replaced her. But what unsettles her most is that you didn't. You simply outgrew the need for her. Stoicism teaches, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. And now you live that. Your smile isn't a weapon, it's a message. A message that says, "I'm good, I'm building, I'm moving." You didn't need to win. You didn't need to get even. You didn't even need her to notice, but she does. Because the man who glows from peace, not performance, shines the brightest. And no woman ever forgets a man who once wanted her, but no longer needs her. So post the photo. Celebrate the win. Spend time with those who bring you life, not to provoke her, but because you no longer place your joy in someone else's hands. And when she finally reaches out again, when she says, "You look happy lately," don't take it as a compliment. Take it as confirmation that your energy has shifted. that your silence became power, that your smile became a boundary. And the moment she realizes she no longer controls your peace is the moment she begins to question everything she let go of. Number 6, becoming the man she can't reach. When you evolve past her grasp. There was a time when you were always within reach, emotionally available, logistically available, energetically available. She knew that with a text, a look, a vague story post, she could summon your attention. You were orbiting her world like a quiet satellite, waiting to be noticed, chosen, wanted, but not anymore. Because now something's changed. You've stopped chasing her and started building you, not out of spite, not out of heartbreak, but because you finally understood. The only woman worth keeping is the one who respects the man you're becoming, not the boy you used to be. So you go quiet, not because you're sulking, but because you're focused. You wake up earlier, you start training harder, you're booking flights, reading books, building something. Your posture shifts, your eyes sharpen. You've gone from available to ascending, and here's what happens. She notices, not right away. At first, she thinks it's a phase. She thinks you'll come back to the rhythm she once controlled. But when the days stretch and the silence lingers, she realizes you're not waiting anymore. You've outgrown the games. You've walked off her emotional stage. And now, she can't reach you, not because you've blocked her, but because you're operating on a frequency she didn't think you were capable of accessing. You're not ignoring her. You've just become too consumed with your mission to entertain her inconsistency. You've become too present with yourself to need her validation. And here's the paradox. The moment she can no longer summon you is the moment she starts chasing. She begins watching your stories like a ritual. She brings up your name in conversations. She starts testing likes, DMs, baited questions, trying to find cracks in your silence. But a Stoic man doesn't respond to bait. He doesn't slow his growth for nostalgia. He doesn't confuse longing with loyalty, because your evolution isn't about her at all. It's about you reclaiming your narrative. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." And now you are, not for her, not for the world, but because your life demands it. And as you rise, you begin to notice something remarkable, the version of her who once held power in your life. She's shrinking in your rear view, not because she changed, but because you did. You've become the man who can't be emotionally manipulated, the man whose time must be earned, the man whose life moves too fast to wait for someone who wasn't sure. And when she sees that, when she realizes she no longer has access, it doesn't just spark curiosity, it ignites regret. Because nothing is more haunting than watching a man you once took for granted become the man every woman now wants but can no longer reach. Number 7. The silent power of self-control, letting her face the void you leave. There's a kind of power that doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it doesn't even explain itself. It simply withdraws and lets silence do what words never could. When a woman no longer values your presence, when she tests, provokes, disrespects, or manipulates, you don't argue your worth. You don't beg to be seen. You don't try to fix her perception. You let go quietly. And in that silence, something profound happens. Not for her, for you. You finally reclaim the one thing she could never respect if you kept giving it away. Your emotional self-control. You stop reacting to every shift in her tone. You stop decoding her mixed signals. You stop chasing conversations that always end in confusion. And instead, you start focusing on the only variable that matters, your response. Because that's the only thing truly under your control. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And in this moment, your reaction is not rage, not passive aggression, not even emotional withdrawal for revenge. It's poise, it's clarity, it's silence that isn't cold but clean. She throws a comment meant to cut deep. You smile, nod, and say, "I see." Then you go about your day. She leaves you hanging, waiting for a response. You don't double text. You don't spiral. You go to the gym. You build your business. You sharpen your mind. Because silence, when backed by self-respect, is not emptiness. It's judgment. It's a verdict. You no longer get access to my energy because you misused it. And she'll feel that. Harder than any insult you could have fired back. More painfully than any speech you could have delivered. Because a woman may forget your words, but she will never forget your absence. Especially when that absence feels strong, whole, and unapologetically alive. See, most men collapse in the face of disrespect. They either lash out in anger or grovel for love. But not you. You don't play either role. You don't need to win the argument. You win by refusing to be dragged into a war over your own value. You've outgrown the need for emotional chaos. You've chosen mastery over reaction. And that choice to be still when the storm rages, that's what separates men who are forgotten from men who become unforgettable. Because when the noise fades, when the guilt sinks in, when the memory of your stillness haunts her, more than your words ever could, that's when she realizes she didn't just lose a man, she lost a man who knew himself. And those men don't come back, because they don't need to. Number 8, the final blow, when your absence teaches what your presence couldn't. There comes a moment, a turning point, not marked by an argument or a slammed door, but by the most stoic, devastating move a man can make you stop trying. No more defending yourself. No more chasing clarity. No more waiting for her to finally recognize your worth. Because when a woman has consistently failed to see the value you brought, the peace you offered, the loyalty you gave, the growth you embodied, then it's no longer her fault. It's yours for staying longer than she deserved. So you stop explaining, stop justifying, stop performing emotional gymnastics just to prove you're a man worth keeping. And what do instead? You walk, not with bitterness, not with vengeance, but with powerful, sacred, masculine detachment. You return to the temple of your own mind, to your discipline, your mission, your code. You recenter, you rebuild. And in that absence, something irreversible happens. She feels it. Not just your physical distance, but the vacuum your energy once filled. The man who used to text, "Are you okay?" is now unreachable. The man who used to cancel plans just to be available now values his peace more than her approval. And that's the moment she remembers it wasn't the attention you gave her that made you irreplaceable. It was the man you were when you gave it. A man of presence, of consistency, of purpose. And that presence, it was a gift. One she mistook for something that would always be there. But now you're not. And your silence, your happiness, your rising strength, it becomes a mirror she can't look away from. A reflection of what she had and lost. A man she could have built with but tried to manipulate. A man she could have respected but pushed to the edge. And when she finally reaches out to test, to reconnect, to see if you're still there, you don't ignore her out of spite. You don't reply out of hope. You simply evaluate. Does this align with the man I've become? Because now you've moved from needing her to choosing you. You are no longer the man she once knew. You are the man she can no longer reach without rising to meet your standard. That's the Stoic man. He doesn't seek revenge. He seeks refinement. He doesn't return to the battlefield. He builds a kingdom where chaos is not allowed entry. And if she wants to come back, she'll have to knock. She'll have to wait. She'll have to earn what she once took for granted. But by then you may be long gone. Not because you're punishing her, but because you finally realized the truth. He who is not a slave to the emotions of others is free. Marcus Aurelius, you chose freedom, and that is the most unforgettable goodbye she'll never get to hear. She may check your stories, she may ask your friends about you, she may try to accidentally show up where she knows you'll be, but what she's really searching for is not your presence. It's your permission. Permission to re-enter the life of a man who no longer waits to be chosen, who no longer breaks his peace to fix her chaos. And the silence that once confused her, it becomes sacred now. It becomes the language of a man who has finally come home to himself. So if she returns, let her come correct. Let her feel the cost of disrespect. And let her see that what she once overlooked now stands tall, focused, and completely out of reach. You don't need to block her. You don't need to hate her. You don't even need to speak. Your growth says everything. And if this message found you at the right time, take it as a sign to rise. Not for her, not against her, but beyond her. This is Stoic love. And if you're ready to reclaim your power, make sure to subscribe because the journey back to your highest self has just begun.